sure. Right, well, good morning everybody, hello. I hope you are well, well rested. So we're going to begin our workshop on climate literacy. And we're going to begin relatively simple. We're going to talk about what exactly is climate literacy, right? So climate literacy or climate science literacy is an understanding of your influence on climate and climate's influence on you and society. So what are the qualities of a climate literate person? A climate literate person should understand the essential principles of Earth's climate system, should know how to assess scientifically credible information about the climate, should communicate about the climate and climate change in a meaningful way, and of course, should be able to make informed and responsible decisions with regards to actions that may affect the climate. And you might be asking, why does climate science literacy matter? During the 20th century, Earth's globally average surface temperature rose by approximately 0.6 degrees Celsius. Additional warming of more than 0.14 degrees Celsius has been measured since the 2000s, which is enormous actually, if we think about it. Though the total increase may seem small, it likely represents an extraordinarily rapid rate of change compared to changes in the previous 10,000 years. Over the 21st century, climate scientists expect Earth's temperature to continue increasing, very likely more than it did during the 20th century. And two anticipated results are rising global sea level and increased frequency and intensity of heat waves, droughts, and also floods. So both negative, right? I don't think anybody expected something positive out of this. These changes will affect almost every aspect of human society. Though we might not see it, it will have some kind of snowball effect, right? It will affect everything, including economic prosperity, human and environmental health, and of course even national security. As this Earth's resources will become scarcer and scarcer because a lot of plants and a lot of different other things will not be able to grow. Our food supplies will diminish. So basically every single resource that we'll have on Earth will diminish. Over the 21st century, climate scientists expect, so scientific observations and climate models results indicate that human activities are now the primary cause of most of the ongoing increase in Earth's globally average surface temperature. Climate change will bring economic and environmental challenges, as well as opportunities, and citizens who have an understanding of climate science will be better prepared to respond to both. Society needs citizens who understand the climate system and know how to apply that knowledge in their careers and their engagement as active members of their communities. Climate change will continue to be a significant element of public discourse. We'll see it, we're already seeing it, that's why we're here today. Understanding the essential principles of climate science will enable all people to assess news stories and to contribute to their everyday conversations as informed citizens. That's the main point, right? So let's talk a little bit about the climate changes. While global change has been relatively stable over the last 10,000 years, the span of human civilization, regional variations in climate patterns have influenced human history in profound ways, playing an integral role in whether societies thrive or fail. We know how the opposite is also true. Human activities, burning fossil fuels, deforesting large areas of land, for instance, have had a profound influence on Earth's climate. And climate change, or global warming, is a long-term change in Earth's overall temperature with massive and permanent ramifications. So now, people may ask, wouldn't global warming happen anyways, even without us humans interfering? Well, yes and no. The Earth does have its cycle of temperatures rising and decreasing, and this is something that is way older than us, right? We can see this is a relatively recent pattern, right? But we can see also increases and decreases, but an overall average increase, right? As we mentioned before, in the last 21 years, the Earth's temperature rose about 0.14 degrees Celsius, which is a big change if we take a look at the course of the temperature rising in the last 10,000 years. So what is causing this drastic increase in temperature? Well, the Earth's atmosphere consists of gases like oxygen and nitrogen and other gases known as greenhouse gases, such as the carbon dioxide, the methane, right, and nitrous oxide. If you are chemists, you might be familiar with the different chemical formulas. Incoming light from the sun hits the Earth's surface, which absorbs some of the energy and heats up the surface of the planet, and the rest of the energy gets reflected. Some of the energy goes back into space, but greenhouse gases trap this energy and send it back at the Earth's surface, heating it up even more, and this is known as the greenhouse effect. We can see here a little diagram of what I just talked about. All right. And the greenhouse effect is natural to Earth, but having too much of it will cause an accelerated increase in the global temperature and will have catastrophic outcomes.
Okay. So now I want to ask you, what do you think are the main human activities that cause the greenhouse gases? Okay. Some were already mentioned before, like the deforestation. Anything else?
What else?
Right, fossil fuel. What is fossil fuel, right? What do we use fossil fuel for? Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Anything else? And any variation of the car, right? Taxis too. They're not omitted from this one, right?
Agriculture.
Okay.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah,
Industry pollution.
Yes.
big one. Yeah, factories, huge factories.
Yes.
Okay.
So a lot of smoke coming out of them. Yeah, that was pretty bad.
Okay.
Identify the main culprits. That's good.
Yes. Okay. So the main ones are fossil fuel burnings, like coal, oil, natural gas. Also, deforestation is a part of this. Animals and agriculture, and waste and recycle pollution that we have talked about yesterday. Okay, so fossil fuel burnings. Burning fossil fuel creates carbon dioxide, which is a greenhouse gas, as we said earlier. And this started mainly with the Industrial Revolution, when the factories came in and a lot of CO2 emissions started to begin. And the fossil fuels are burned and mixed with carbon, mixed with heat, and they will create smog. You can see here Beijing smog, which is very, very thick, and you can't even go outside without proper protection like masks or breathing filters, because it's too thick and dangerous for people. This actually looks like something from a dystopic movie, but it's reality. Now, animals in agriculture, how could they contribute to this? Livestock farms actually produce large amount of excrements, which release various gases into the air, one of them being methane. Methane is actually 23 times more effective at trapping heat than carbon dioxide, and 80% of these emissions in the US come from animal waste. 56 billion of animals are yearly raised on the globe for food purpose, which is a lot more than we actually need. It's 8 times more than the global population. We also destroy large areas for producing food for animals, like crops, and also to make farms. It's estimated like 7 football fields worth of land is bulldozed every minute to create more space for animals to live in, or more space for crops, which is a lot. And this also means deforestations, like you can see in the pictures. The third one is waste and recycle pollution. Solid waste landfills are some of the largest pollutants of methane in the US. You can see it on the diagram too. Methane landfills are 15% of the whole emission, methane emission. In 2015, we produced 40 billion tons of CO2, which would be over 100 months of Mount Everest, which is a lot. And the largest natural pollutants of the Earth are the volcanoes, and they only produce 500 million tons of CO2, so it's only 2% of what we produce as humans. Why should we care about this? Estimated that the temperature will rise 13 degrees for the next century, which is a drastic change in the plants and animals, and they can't adapt to it because it is a huge change for them. If one species goes extinct, we will create a domino effect, and the food chain will also be affected, and it will eventually affect us too. As you can see, the warmer temperature warms up the ocean, and it creates ocean acidification, which is very harmful for the sea life. You can see that the Great Barrier Reef is being destroyed by this. This is a recent picture, I think, from 2019. And the before part of the picture was taken also in 2019. So this happened in a couple of months only. Because of the oceans are getting warmer, the polar ice is also melting, and we lose Arctic sea life at a rate of almost 13% per decade. And in 2016, it was estimated that 65% of the polar ice caps were melted. Because the polar ice is melting, we are also endangering some species as polar bears, narwhals, and Pacific walrus. The melting of the ice also causes problems not only for the sea life but also for us humans. This is a flood that happened in Louisiana in 2016 because too much water was emitted from the ice melting and the ocean couldn't handle it. The melted ice isn't the only problem we are facing. We also face a lot more wildfires that happen. This happened in 2020 in January, and it happened in Australia in Ororo Valley. And researchers said that the climate change increased the place's fire risk by 30%. Now, the Paris Agreement, we might have heard about this one. It is a legal binding international treaty on climate change, and it was adopted by 196 parties at the Conference of the Parties 21 in Paris, and entered into force in 2016, November 4. The goal is to limit global warming well below 2, preferably to 1.5 degrees Celsius compared to pre-industrial levels. And scientists say that in order to limit the temperature rising to 1.5, greenhouse gases emissions need to be cut half until 2013, and carbon dioxide emissions need to reach net zero till 2050. And we're not doing so good. How can we motivate individuals for change? This is a rare success story, the ozone hole. Most of us know the story, probably. It is very famous. In 1970s, they started using a lot of hairspray, aerosol spray cans that contain CFCs, and the CFCs are basically destroying the ozone hole that protects us from the UV radiations. And after finding out that the CFCs were a threat to the ozone layer, the usage of CFCs in aerosol spray cans got banned in many countries, which also led to creating the Montreal Protocol that regulates the production and consumption of nearly 100 man-made chemicals referred to as ozone-depleting substances, usually delayed global warming by a decade, this Montreal Protocol. And happy news, now it's estimated that by 2070, the ozone hole will be completely healed, which is fantastic, actually. And it actually shows us that we can do something to help the planet, and we can do big changes, because this is a very big change. We destroyed it, and we can make it to be better. Now, what does actually motivate people? Study shows that guilt is not a good predictor for engagement. So the guilt trips are not motivating people. If you go to them and talk to them about the dying polar bears or anything similar, they won't really do anything about it. There was actually a project, the UCLA Engage project, and they wanted to see what kind of message works for people so they could conserve more energy. The messages, people got different messages. Some got mails about how they can save money by saving energy, and some got mails about what impacts have the energy on children's health and on the environment. Those who got messages about saving money didn't do anything, and those who got the messages about the children's health, 8% in total decreased the energy usage, and 90% of those who had children themselves decreased energy usage. Now another experiment, it used the same formula, but they added this social competition. So they made this in the university dorms, and they used some kind of poster, okay.
Oh, right.
So they used
Yeah.
the poster that was put in the dorms, and every room they got weekly evaluations based on how many energy they used. So red dots for wasting energy, green dots for saving energy, and golden stars for conserving energy. And 20% reduction happened because of this, because people like competition and people like to win.
So positive reinforcement is the key, not negative, right? As she said. If we just go and scold people, you use too much energy, they're just not gonna care. But you felicitate them for not using too much energy, this strategy is much more efficient. So we need to keep this in mind. This is a general idea when we're trying to educate people. Positive reinforcement is the best and most efficient way to teach people something.
There is also a company called O-Power that is using this data and is providing personalized energy reports for consumers so they can see how they're doing compared to their neighbors. As you can see, this is an example like you're doing better than your neighbors or you're doing just like your neighbors, and this can motivate you because you want to be better than your neighbors at anything that you do.
Of course.
Okay, so are renewables the best solution we have? Renewable energy, often referred to as clean energy, comes from natural sources or processes that contain that are constantly replenished. For example, sunlight or wind keep shining and blowing, even if their availability depends on time and weather. The electricity from solar rooftops costs twice as much as the one from solar farms, and both solar farms and wind farms need lots of physical space for them. These are usually resisted by conservation biologists because they are concerned about the impact on wild bird species. Those biologists are actually right because the wind turbines kill lots of birds yearly, like eagles, kites, and they actually endanger these species. And building a solar or wind farm means clearing of a large area of wildlife and can also mean deforestation. You can see here, this is one of the biggest solar farms. It is in California. It's called Ivanpah. And to build this whole area, they had to clear it of desert tortoises. And they were transported to captivity where many of them died. The current estimates are that 6,000 birds are killed every year catching on fire about the solar farm. Seems like a major problem with renewables that the problems aren't technical, but they are natural. Okay, so Germany is considered to be the leader when it comes to using renewables, yet France has managed to generate twice as much energy from clean sources than Germany, and their electricity costs half as much as Germany's. Do you happen to know why the difference is? Speaking to the French people.
Nuclear energy?
Yes, exactly. France gets most of its electricity from nuclear power, which is also a clean source. And is it nuclear power safe?
No.
Okay, so this is the assumption that nuclear power isn't safe, but the estimates show that that is actually the safest one. Since they started using nuclear power, there haven't been any accidents or deaths, but even solar or wind turbines caused human deaths by accident. So it seems that it's pretty safe, but there are some assumptions that are mostly based on historical facts that it is not. What is your opinion on it?
Can you repeat the question? What did you ask?
what is your opinion on nuclear power? Because you said that it wasn't safe.
So I think it's clear if there is an accident or the nuclear power is handled
Be more
poorly,
dangerous,
right? It can be horrible results. Right?
Yeah.
But if handled properly,
Yes, that's the key.
that is the key. Yes. So
Yeah.
it's kind of
And so far, France managed it pretty well. I mean,
yeah.
there hasn't been any horrible accidents.
For the moment. But syndicates complain because it said that the electricity companies treat more and more with low-cost companies for the daily management to
Mhm.
reduce the costs. And they fear, say, maybe it's really dangerous.
Mhm. I see.
For instance, there's also the question of what to be the ultimate waste.
Mhm.
What would they?
Yeah, that is one problem. And we also wanted to talk about this, that solar farms and wind turbines actually also leave waste, and most of the people don't think about that, one can function for like 25 years. And afterwards, what are we going to do with that, with the parts? Where are we going to bring them? Some researchers actually think that the parts will be bought to Africa or Asia for the poor countries, and they're going to be disassembled, and that is going to be very dangerous for the people there because there are some very toxic materials in those. So we don't know what is going to happen in 25 years with that waste also, and we don't really know what will happen with the nuclear waste. Seems like all the renewables have problems, and we didn't manage to find solutions, proper solutions for any of them. We are just looking for some solutions, but didn't think of the long-term part for any of those. So now the final message that I'm going to leave you with is don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. That means that don't stop trying because you don't have the best solutions. Like we said, the solar farms or any of these aren't the best solutions, and probably we could find something better. But that's why we need to keep trying and finding better and better solutions till we find something that is actually good for the long term too. And that's it for the presentation, and now we're going to continue with the workshop.
Or would you guys like to have a break or?